Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. Oh, speaking of, we talk about the impact, of course, in 2018, we saw a whole slew of new Democrats come into Congress. One of them is Ayanna Pressley, of course, out of Massachusetts. She ran against a longtime Democrat, was not supported by the Democratic Party, was not supported by many CBC members, but this sister, she still organized and mobilized, and she won. She's in Congress fighting for Medicare for all. I had a chance to talk to her yesterday about a slew of topics. Here's our conversation. First and foremost, Congresswoman, I want to cover several different things, but first, the absolute I can't even think of the word to use, but the contempt that the Trump administration has for Congress, ignoring subpoenas, the testimony of Bill Barr, just your assessment of how they do not care about a co-equal branch of government.
Just complete lawlessness. And this is exactly why I do support the resolution to initiate impeachment proceedings. I think that this administration has given us a credible cause. They've lost moral authority a long time ago. But I think with the Mueller report, what was unredacted does prove obstruction of justice, witness tampering. I think Mueller is sort of like a by-the-book guy, a constitutionalist, which is why he neither indicted or exonerated. But I think he left us some breadcrumbs, and left us not only a roadmap, but the runway as a co-equal branch of government to assume our role. And it's just been complete and utter disregard. I feel demoralized and disrespected, and I fear for our country. And I just want to underscore that because we're making this about this administration and the occupant in the corner office. But history will define us by this moment. This is bigger than Donald Trump. This is about the office of the presidency. And given the lawlessness and the complete disregard by Trump and this administration, I think, neither of us want to go down this path. But we must go down this path because ultimately this is about the precedents that we're setting for the office of the presidency. And I don't know how we restore the American people's faith in government with these steady threats to our democracy and the undermining of this institution.
I understand why Democratic leadership, they're reticent to actually go down the impeachment process. But clearly, even just the ignoring of subpoenas, we now have a story where the White House counsel has sent a letter to the Attorney General saying Donald Trump has informed his aides to completely ignore subpoenas.
That's right.
That's where, I mean, at least that's where Congress has to say, fine, you ignore subpoena, you're going to get arrested.
Absolutely. I mean, so first they were stonewalling at every turn, and now they're stonewalling. Again, there's credible evidence of obstruction of justice, and now they're just a complete no-show. So this is just lawlessness, and no one is above the law, including the occupant and this administration. And so, again, it's sobering. People, this is very, very triggering. We don't want to, when we think of Watergate, and, it's a stain on the country. And so this is nothing to be entered into cavalierly or casually. I don't want to do this, but I think we've been left with no other choice or recourse. And Roland, might I add, we often present these scenarios in these binary choices, but it's not an or proposition. It's and. Let's initiate impeachment proceedings while also continuing to hold this administration accountable, using every tool available to us to leverage. I'm so glad I'm on the Oversight and Reform Committee under the leadership of Chairman Cummings to do that, and continuing to legislate on behalf of the American people. So there are three legs to this stool.
Let's talk about health care. First of all, breaking news, the Trump administration is going even further to oppose the Affordable Care Act. They have filed a brief that will wipe out essentially the entire Affordable Care Act. You also advocating Medicare for all. I mean, these two things are converging at the same time.
This is it's unconscionable, and he has broken ostensibly every campaign promise that he made. I mean, they just came out of the 2018 cycle saying that they believe that we should preserve some tenets of the ACA, specifically coverage for those with pre-existing conditions, and that's completely, been thrown out. You run on an agenda of making America great again, and then in this 116th Congress, the first thing you do is hold the American worker and family hostage in the midst of a temper tantrum, and shut down the federal government. So this is very consistent with how this administration has been moving. I do think, again, when we talk about health care, this is also a situation of and not or. We have to do everything to fight to protect the ACA. In my district, the Massachusetts 60+% of my constituents live with pre-existing conditions. Our first hearing in an oversight and reform was about the need to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. We had a mother, Roland there, a black mother there, talking about her two daughters who live with type 1 diabetes. Unfortunately, she went to wake her oldest daughter for school, only to find that she had passed away 16 years old because they were rationing insulin. So we need to do everything to stave off the threats from this administration to the ACA. But we knew the ACA all along was the floor, not the ceiling. The ultimate goal here is universal health care. Medicare for all is a bold step in the right direction. When people are paying for their medical bills through GoFundMe pages, we know that we're at a crisis. This is an inflection point. And so I know that there are those that think it is too aspirational and it is too bold, but this is an issue of consequence to the American people. And further, given the access issues and growing health disparities, I think keeping people unhealthy is just another tool of oppression. And that's why I'm a proud sponsor of the Medicare for All legislation by Reps Jayapal and Dingell.
And obviously, this is going to be a huge issue on the Democratic presidential trail. When you look at the polling data, gun control is an issue. Health care is a top issue. Climate change is a top issue. And I do want to quickly get in a question from you. A few moments ago, I saw your tweet speaking against this bill that Governor Ron DeSantis is going to sign in Florida, arming teachers, which a lot of folks say makes no sense whatsoever. And so when you look at those three issues, again, you have on one hand approval rating for Donald Trump, his handling of the economy at 56%. Now, his overall approval rating that, but those three other issues are still going to be huge. Do you believe that they will also resonate with those independent voters, those white voters who went for Trump, those folks who in red state America, because like it or not, they're impacted by climate change. They're impacted by gun violence in schools and healthcare.
And that's the point. That's why, the fact that we are so polarized is perplexing, because the issues that you just named, gun control, gun violence is a public health crisis and epidemic in this country, as is the residual trauma that it leaves in its wake. That is an urban issue. That is a suburban issue. That is a rural issue. This is not anyone, coming for your amendment rights. This is the acknowledgement that for every household that has a gun, there's an increased likelihood that a child will die accidentally at the hand of that gun, or that there might be a domestic violence, a situation, or a suicide. So this is bigger than party. This is an issue of national consequence. I'm so glad you said health care, because that's where we need to get to. We've been having long debates around health coverage, around insurance coverage, but what we need is health care. So it is my hope that as we make our way down this 2020 path, that it will become clearer to people that we do have a responsibility. It's incumbent upon us to act boldly, because these are issues of consequence to all Americans, even if the burden of some of these issues, the resiliency of climate change, those that are most vulnerable to extreme weather and sea level rise, gun violence, health disparities, are disproportionately bore by some communities, by our communities more than others, that these are issues of consequence to all the American people. And on your question around my latest tweet, I do want to give a shout out to my sister in service, Johanna Hayes, out of Connecticut, a former National Teacher of the Year, who put forward legislation that would deny the use of federal funds to arm teachers. This is not going to make any of us any safer.
And I'm going to sneak in one more question. The Congressional Black Caucus has sent a letter to SiriusXM blasting them for no blacks on their board of directors, no African Americans in their management. It was signed by Congresswoman Karen Bass, G.K. Butterfield, and Barbara Lee. With Democrats now controlling the House, this is an issue, of course, those of us in NABJ. We've been pressing CNN on no black executives as well. And I've had some people who say, well, why are you guys fighting this? The reality is, the fact that you can't find any black folks to be in radio of all mediums to be an executive. And then when you talk about on the board of directors, this is us being frozen out of important positions, has an impact on wealth building, has an impact on down the generational line. And I just think that, it is important for the CBC to hold these publicly traded companies accountable because it makes no sense in 2019. We're still talking about literally no African Americans in the C-suite, no African Americans on the board of directors of SiriusXM Radio.
Well, I just want to also just give it up to you and thank you. You have been so vigilant in this space and on so many other issues relative to racial, social, and economic justice. And I do want to thank our chairwoman. I serve on financial services in addition to serving on oversight and reform, Maxine Waters. Unprecedented. We created the first D&I, Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee in the history of Congress. And these are the sorts of things that are happening in this brand new Congress. The CBC, this is the largest delegation we've had in our history, 55 members. And what is the point of growing our representation if we don't flex that muscle? So you have our commitment and our solidarity, in this space for all the reasons which you've already outlined, and continue to call on us. It's a new day. So very, very proud to be a part of this CBC. Just in this last cycle, 9 new members of the Congressional Black Caucus and 5 black women. So.
All right. Well, Congresswoman Pressley, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Keep giving them help.
And we're filming from Shirley Chisholm's. What was Shirley Chisholm's office? My office. So she had 3 offices in her 8-year tenure, and this office, Longworth 1108, was the first. So we've got some good mojo going on here. Come check us out.
I will do. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.